Many people talk to me about their education background, where they went to university, what degree they might have done. My name is Claire, and I'm an English tutor here on Cambly. Previously, I worked in the IT industry for well over a decade, starting as a system specialist, moving into training customers on software and services, progressing into IT project management, customer service management, and finally leading service delivery in the private healthcare sector. Many people talk to me about their education background, where they went to university, what degree they might have done. And I'm pleased to report that in the UK, academic elitism is reducing. So perhaps 15 years ago, if you didn't come from the right university or the right background, you may not have gotten the job that you deserved. However, in the UK, the job market and the education market has moved so rapidly that it no longer comes down to where you came from. It comes down to the experiences that you've gained from whatever path you've taken. So if you didn't come from the top-rated university, but you can speak confidently about your experiences, what you've learnt during all of your experiences, both positive and negative, then it doesn't matter. There is no point going into an interview with the best degree behind you if you can't tell people what you learned during that education process. Experience is hugely relevant. So what did you learn from all the different jobs that you've had? What did you learn at school? What can you tell someone about yourself and what you've learned about yourself during all of your experiences? If you can't quantify what you know, then a degree isn't going to help you. You've got to be convincing, you've got to be genuine, and you've got to be interesting at the end of the day. So the UK job market is an interesting one, and without going into the realms of Brexit and how that has affected the workforce, ultimately, if someone has the right experience, the right motivation, and the right attitude, then in theory they should be able to get any job they want. The IT industry is one that has evolved across the globe over the last 20 years. You no longer need to be in the country that you're working for, especially if you consider development jobs, project management roles. The IT industry is much more fluid than it was even 15 years ago. Developers no longer have to be based in the same room working together. You might collaborate on a project with someone who works 10,000 miles away from you or in a completely different time zone. And even some forms of support services and administration functions. If you've got the right qualifications, you should always go for the job that you want. Even if a company isn't necessarily hiring, there's no harm in sending your CV or resume through to an HR department. Quite often, big companies will keep their CVs and resumes on file. So if someone applied for a job that perhaps they didn't get, or if someone sent their CV in for a role that didn't exist yet, if it comes around, then your CV is already there. The IT industry has got so many opportunities nowadays. So it's always worth going for an opportunity, even if you think you've not got a hope. If you can sell yourself, sell your experiences, and show that you're flexible and willing to work, you'll always come out of an interview learning something. Even if it's that you won't get the job, you've still learned how to deal with a new person, how to behave in a different scenario. So it's always worth taking a chance, have a go. When you're thinking about how fluent you need to be in English, whether to work overseas or to work with overseas colleagues, fluency is the important word here. Fluency over accuracy will help most of the time. I would suggest that if you're going for an interview, thinking about working overseas, whether it be in Britain or America or another English-speaking country, or if you're looking to move to a job where you'll need to speak English regularly, you can find lots of ways to self-check your fluency level online. Cambly has some great resources that you can check your level against their training materials to see where you would pitch yourself, beginner, intermediate, or perhaps an advanced level. There are also preparation documents for tests. The Ielts test, for example, is a very common one that students will talk about. Personally, I find that a lot of the Ielts test material to be quite heavily biased towards the use of idioms or phrases that you may find a native English speaker doesn't use as frequently as Ielts may require. However, the ultimate way of testing your level would be to speak to a native English speaker. If you've got some key phrases or words that you need to be able to use confidently, a quick conversation with a native English tutor will give you an idea of whether you're on track for the level that you think you're at, or whether you're perhaps over or under the level that you're at. Again, when we're thinking about business English, fluency is really important. Can you get through a meeting or a conversation without stopping too much or without thinking too much about what you're trying to say? If you can get your message across without worrying too much about it being 100% accurate, then that's really important. Throughout my time as an IT trainer, I worked with people from all different backgrounds, different countries, different cultures, different education levels. I often found that when dealing with those who didn't have English as their first language, their biggest weakness was confidence or their lack of it. 9 times out of 10, if you're able to speak fluently, the person that you're speaking to will be able to understand what you're saying. However, if you pause frequently, if you try to correct yourself mid-sentence, or if you stop to think about what you're trying to say, the person you're speaking to might interrupt, they might interject, they might suggest completely the wrong phrase for the phrase that you were searching for. So those non-native English speakers who were able to continue speaking and then correct what they were saying or update what they were saying as part of their conversation with an English speaker, they were always much more successful in getting their point across. Those who were nervous, second-guessed themselves, would quite often struggle to have a successful conversation because they were always being interrupted or taken off track. The biggest strength of many of these non-native English speakers was their persistence, their ability to keep going, to keep trying, and primarily their work ethic. When you're in a situation which isn't within your comfort zone, so whether it's outside of your home country or speaking outside of your native language, if you keep trying and you keep going with what you're trying to say, what the message you're trying to convey, it shows. People can see that you're working hard to get your point across, to be heard, to be listened. So it's great when you're able to work with people from different backgrounds, because you can really see those that are trying and want to get their point across versus those that are perhaps a little too nervous, too afraid to speak up. And those who are afraid to speak up often get overlooked. If you don't have a go at making your point, you'll never be heard. Whereas at least if you try, you know that someone will have taken note and heard a little bit of something at some point. So in my experience as a trainer, the best way to present in English is to be prepared. Chances are you might be a subject matter expert. No one in the room will know more than you, but if you can't get that across, then you'll struggle to be taken seriously. So be prepared. What questions might you be asked? What explanations may you need to give? What scenarios can you come up with to prepare yourself for this presentation as best possible? Put yourself in the shoes of those that are watching your presentation. Do they understand all the terms you're using? Do they understand the scenario that you're talking about or explaining? If you can break your presentation down so that anyone could understand it, fantastic. My other top tip for presentations is confidence. Confidence is key. You need to appear confident, sound confident, and even if you're not feeling completely confident inside, if you act that way, people will believe it. Believe in yourself. You wouldn't be making this presentation if someone didn't think you are capable of doing so. So believe in that opportunity that you've been given. You can do it, otherwise you wouldn't be there. I've worked with a number of Korean students to improve their business English, as well as students from many other countries. And I found that the biggest question or concern that my students have is how to express themselves. For example, you may have the perfect saying or phrase in your native language, but there may not be a direct translation into English. And many students find this to be their biggest struggle. How do I express my thoughts about this scenario to my colleague in English? 9 times out of 10, I find that many of these concerns can be overcome with an increase in confidence. Many times your counterparts will understand the sentiment or what you're trying to express through the way in which you say it. So even if your English isn't 100% accurate, they will have picked up your feelings through the way you speak. Confidence is key when it comes to business English, because if you're able to speak confidently and fluently, rather than 100% accurately, your colleagues, clients, customers, whatever it might be, they'll be able to understand your ultimate sentiment through the way in which you're speaking.